What does it mean to love your enemies? Well, William McKinley can teach us a lesson on that one. He was an immensely popular president, having won 2 landslide victories. His foreign policy made him widely popular, and the way he treated his wife, who was an invalid, who probably had epilepsy, just showed everyone what a kind and good man he was. He was a Civil War veteran, a successful politician who had been governor of Ohio for 2 terms. He had a great character and was helping America kind of pull out of an economic depression. And he loved people. In fact, after his second election, he went on a nationwide tour, and he was giving big speeches and talking to people. At one place, he gave a speech to over 116,000 people. It was massive. And at this one speech, it was the last speech. He was in Buffalo, and he was going to give a speech to 50,000 people. And he gave a speech, and they were just cheering for him, and things were so good. And he decided that he was going to meet a lot of the people. And so he was in this building, there was this huge line, and people were just coming and shaking the hand of the president, and he was talking to them and just having a great time. Well, McKinley believed that carnations were lucky, and he always had a carnation stuck in his little lapel pocket. And he had just met this cute little 8-year-old girl, and just kind of on a whim, he whipped out a little red carnation from his jacket, and he gave it to her. And one of the very next people that he shook hands with was an anarchist who was probably not quite all there in the mental realm. And the anarchist had a pistol. And as soon as he stood in front of McKinley, McKinley held out his hand to shake it. And instead of grabbing his hand, the man put the pistol out and shot McKinley point blank range 2 times in the abdomen. There's a loud clap of thunder as the gunfire went off inside the building, and people really didn't know what had happened. And McKinley's face it immediately the blood drained from his face, and he kind of looked like, he just didn't even understand. And then the assassin was getting ready to shoot him again. But a very large African American, his name was James Parker, everyone called him Big Jim, was standing right behind him. He was going to shake the president's hand next, and he saw the guy was getting ready to shoot again, and he just punched the assassin in the face, knocked him down, and then everyone jumped into action. The president fell back. The Secret Service and soldiers and crowd jumped on this assassin, ripped the gun out of his hand, and they just started wailing away on him. And McKinley is lying there. His white shirt is just covered in his own blood. And he calls out, says, "Please stop hurting him. He doesn't know what he's doing. He didn't know what he did." And he said several phrases which kind of reminds me of Jesus on the cross saying, this guy doesn't know. He doesn't know what he did. Please don't hurt him. And it was only when the president ordered that they stop beating him that the mob stopped abusing this assassin. Instead, he was dragged off and thrown in jail and interrogated. McKinley was rushed across the street. The only doctor they could find was a gynecologist, and so he came in, and they tried to find the bullets, but they couldn't, so they tried to suture him up, and the bullets went right through his stomach and maybe lodged near his spine. Well, McKinley made a quick recovery. Things looked like they were going to be good. He was reading the newspaper and sitting up. Teddy Roosevelt, who was the vice president, even took a long hiking trip in upstate New York. He said, "I think he's going to recover. Everything's fine." But then the wound turned to gangrene, and there was an infection, and William McKinley passed away pretty quickly once the infection took place. Now, in the news lately, William McKinley has been talked about because there's a mountain in Alaska that was named McKinley. Mount McKinley was the tallest mountain in North America, but then they changed it to Denali, which is what the local natives call it. And there's been some political back and forth, and people have been talking about, oh, McKinley was an imperialist. He doesn't deserve to have a name after him. And, oh, but he was a great president. And there's this whole debate, and I just can't help but chuckle and think, if McKinley was here, he wouldn't care if they named a mountain after him or not. I mean, if a guy's gonna think about his assassin and say, please don't hurt him, being named after a mountain or having a mountain named after him isn't gonna be a high priority. In fact, McKinley's life a lot of it was just thinking about other people. When his wife would have seizures at state dinners, he had a handkerchief that he would just take and gently place over her face to protect her dignity. And when he was shot, he talked about two people. He said, please stop hurting the assassin, and oh, please be careful how you tell my wife. Now, you can argue his politics and his presidential record and say he was a good guy or a bad guy, but you can't argue that in his character, he was a good person. I wonder how different our lives would be when we're going through trauma and pain if we think about others. When something bad happens to us, it's really easy to jump into the woe is me, poor me. But what if we jumped into the, oh no, how's this going to affect other people? How can I alleviate their pain? I mean, he was literally holding his stomach bleeding, thinking about an assassin and his wife. I think that's what Jesus was talking about when he said we need to love our enemies. Now he said we need to love others the way we love ourselves. Not because this is some super tough religious thing to do, but it is the key to peace and happiness. So today, when something doesn't go your way, because you'll have something not go your way, instead of jumping on the pity party bandwagon, look around and think, who can I comfort? Who can I encourage? Who can I love? Because I guarantee you, when you start thinking those thoughts, asking those questions, your emotions will take a totally different track, and you'll be able to make the world a better place, just like William McKinley. God bless.